Welcome back, folks, to Pokemon Hot Gold here on the heavybass channel. Last time we discovered that we had an encounter with an asshole named Silver, and once we got the fact that he stole a Pokemon and we have our journey beginning, and then we have to reform Professor Elm and all that stuff. Lyra gave us a tutorial in order to get us some Pokemon to catch, and we're gonna do so right away. Our first bit of catching for this game, which is going to be starting off your common Pidgey. So, Gen 2 rules. It's the same rules as it was for Gen number. The same catch rate for Gen 2 Gold and Silver. In other words, Pokemon that we have here is the same for Gold and Silver in the original Gen 2. It is not Crystal. The only thing that Hot Gold Soul Silver borrowed from Crystal was its plot. That's it. Anything else is just the same catch rate for this. And we're going to be catching some Pokemon for this route. We caught our first Pokemon in the form of a Pidgey. As Gen 4 was the implication, you have to see a Pokemon in order for it to encounter its entry in the dex. It does actually count. Which, thank God, because this was a pain in the neck. Because this was a pain because you couldn't run, you could only walk, and you had to encounter many, many, many encounters. It is that painful, that stupid. Anyway. The more important thing here is we're going to be catching this Centret. So, there are plenty of team designs out there, aesthetically, gold, and all that stuff. And this is going to be one of our first early team players. Yes, you heard me right, I am taking a Centret with me along. Mostly for filler, but because it's a normal type and it is technically a good Pokemon for the early part of the game. Early part being the first two gyms. Once we get past the first two gyms, and if we evolve it, then there are much better options for it. And I will state that straight away. I wanted to take a break, so I saved to record my progress. Thank goodness for that. There are different ways of doing so. And this is probably one of the few times where I decided to go ahead and decide to do things in segments. Because this was affecting the judgment of my, because this was also affecting my Pokemon. Or rather, it started to affect my saves a bit. It's a bit of a pain in the ass. It really was. It really was a pain in the effing neck. But but there are different ways of doing so. Anyway, there are different counters, so if you want to catch a Pokemon, you have to look everywhere. This is very important. There are two Pokemon here that you want to encounter if your starter is essentially a Chikorita. The worst starter of the three, and the worst Pokemon to suffer from the physical special split of Gen 4. In the past, I would have said Totodile was the one that suffered the most. But if you have a Chikorita, this is going to be one of the first Pokemon you're going to want to get. And trust me, you want to get this Pokemon. Because it will be very, very handy. So we get to show off our first bit of tech. Catching this Spearow is going to help us because it will have a move that will help us in the early games. You see, whilst Gust is technically a move that was re-designated in the game, I think it was designated special, physical, however Pidgey is not very good at using it. Per se. Which makes it completely useless. So you're going to want to get a Pokemon that we can rely on. And this is one of the Pokemon that we can successfully rely on, a Geodude. Which you can catch in this early part of the game, in this route specifically, during the day. Very handy. There's about 3 Pokemon we can also catch here as well. I think there's a third as well. I do believe. Not quite sure about the rest. Well, here's the Geodude level 3. Perfect. So, Geodudes are ground rock types. Brilliant. They are very, very useful. Exceptionally useful. They will, you know. And they are, well, you know, kind of handy as well. Dandy. Like a guide or something. You're going to want to start... Anyway, normal types are not very effective, so that's going to be something very useful. Since most gyms are essentially that. So we're going to catch Geodude, like so. 1, 2, 3, and we caught it. There we go. Geodude. If you are a Chikorita user, this is going to be one of your first new teammates. Because it's a rock ground type, it is excellent, physically stable, it can take out the first 2 gyms. It will be very, very, very useful. Now we're going to try and find our 3rd Pokemon. Which is essentially going to make things very, you know, easier for us later on. What we can is just either we can wait till the night or we just don't wait till the night. Either way, it's not going to happen. At the time, this was me realizing that I had a very bad selection. But anyway, we went past that, we got back, we went for a cherry route, and now we're going to move on to this point. We are at Heart Gold, we're going to face that one. No, we're not. It's a Pokemon we're looking for. It's the evolved form of Pokemon that we're going to want, so we're not going to catch this one. It is a Metapod, though. Don't catch wild Metapods, they're terrible. What you want to do is you're going to want to catch an early Pokemon. And I do mean catch. And I do mind saying this. And I'll say this yet again. It makes it easier for those in the room. I'm going to try and find the Caterpie. You are going to want to catch a first form, and you want to train it. Because if you catch a wild second form, it will not have moves that will be useful to attack. Metapod just hardens, as you can see. Wild Metapod only hardens. It doesn't have tackle. It doesn't have the means to evolve whatsoever. It is a rule that was established not only in the anime, but also establishing in the Reds and Blues that you want to train a first form as immediately as you can. So this is the Pokemon we're looking for. This is Caterpie. Caterpie at level 3. Yeah, this is Gen 2 has a very, very weird and very wild evolution. Has a very weird and wild level curve. You're going to be stuck with certain Pokemon for the rest of the game, and certain Pokemon that are true without it. So yeah, Caterpie at level 3. It has Tackle and String Shot. Those moves will stay when you evolve it to its next form, which is Metapod. Metapod just has Harden. That's it. It's crap. Quite literally, it is just utter crap. But I think we're done for that one because we're moving on to the night time. Yes, we are moving on to the night time. We're moving time zones and everything. Maybe talking while I was walking in the tall grass, a bug-type Pokemon poisoned me. I just kept going, but my Pokemon nearly fainted. This was a pain in the ass in the original because in the original Red and Blue, if your Pokemon was poisoned, it wouldn't shrug it off. It would actually toughen it out, which is very nice and all that stuff. But anyway, you're gonna want to buy some Pokeballs, about 10 of them to be precise, because we're going to be doing some catching, which is really important. Also, we get a Premier Balls and added bonus. We will be getting about 5 of these, very handy. And since we're also going to be doing that, 5 of these, because we already have picked up 5 potions that we haven't really used. Which I think is very handy. Every time you buy 10 Pokeballs or so, you get a free Premier Ball. Premier Balls are absolutely useless and should be trashed in general. That's why they make that promotion. It's a terrible promotion, more or less. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find myself a nighttime Pokemon for this one. Well, really wouldn't call that a nighttime Pokemon, but that's our first nighttime adventure in the form of Rattata. Now you can catch Rattata there's a rare Rattata around level 4, which is like a very strong Rattata if you're very, very lucky. But they're commonplace up here at Route 30. You're going to want to catch these very quick. More or less. Anyway, we got that out of the way. Rattata is catchable, which is good. Very important. Allows us to go into the decks. That is a normal type. It is a useful Pokemon for some people. It does evolve. Basically, it's a two-tier evolution. It basically is very useful for this game. And we also have a Hoothoot. That's useful too. Very useful. This is Johto's common bird Pokemon. And we also have this is also another team player, per se. You ask yourself, why is this a team player? Well, we've got Sentret for the early part. We're going to want a flying type as well, so by common denominations, Hoothoot's going to be coming with us for the early game. And I mean it's going to come with us for the early game. I'm not going to hear any objections otherwise. Yeah. That's exactly what I did. Hoothoot is a normal flying type that always stands on 1 foot. It does have 2 feet. Surprisingly, it just likes standing on 1 foot. That's the commonplace. That's why one mistakenly thinks it has 1 foot, but actually it has 2. And it would be a pain in the ass. Oh, it's a Spinarak. This is a bug poison type. This is also a very, very weak bug poison type. That didn't get a benefit to updating its stats and all that stuff till its earliest move. Got a massive buff in frickin' Gen. Got a massive buff. In fact, it was poised. I personally think Spinarak and Ariados should have got a Alolan form, or rather, a Alolan variant. It would have been a very interesting way, but they wanted the Panda to Gen 1 so much, there was a lot of Alolan forms. Trust me, there was also Alolan that's why most of the variants are Alolan based. Well, there was a Galarian form, but they were specifically to other Pokemon that really, really needed it. So yeah, we've added a Spinarak to that form, which is really kind of important. There is one more Pokemon that we do need to catch at some point as well. And that is an exclusive activity because this is Gold and Silver. Spinarak was the exclusive bug type for Gold. As well as, Caterpie was exclusive to Gold and all that for that route. Which is probably the reason why we need to catch the other two. Which is why we're going to switching to my Silver copy, which starts off with Totodile, but we are now going to be looking for our next Pokemon. And this is our first new Pokemon. This is Weedle at level 4. That's exactly why we need to make sure this thing is weak. Which is why I don't want it to fade. Don't want to lose this thing. More or less. Weedle did get a buff. Weedle did in fact get a pretty big buff in Gen 6. Before it was just a terrible Pokemon. This is also this commonplace because it's also the common exclusive for Silver players. This is instead of catching Caterpie first, you get Weedle, which is basically the same commonplace that you get those exclusives. Like Red was Caterpie. Actually, no, Red was Weedle. Blue was Caterpie. I remember that pretty much. Very much. And I do remember that. But pretty much we are at dawn. We could try and find the next entry. And here it is. Ladybug. Ladybug is a bug flying type. It also is a big giant mistake. Very weak and forgettable mess. They tried, trust me, they tried. This was the regional bug that was exclusive to Silver, and that was it. Nothing else just mattered, really. You just catch it, that was that. And you're being a stubborn bitch. Am I not being surprised here? I don't want Retardal's rage building. My rage is building because you're supposed to be caught in a ball. More or less. One. Excuse me. Excuse me. You stay right there. Thank you. Ladybug's caught, and we're not going to use him entirely because it's bug flying, which is a useless typing. It's sport, which is useless in this game, and it's equally just as crap. If it got a stat distribution, it'd be fine, but it's useless, so we ain't using it. Anyway, we've caught a lot of Pokemon, and next time we're gonna move on up to Route 30 and see what's beyond there properly that we can go past. See you next time, folks. Bye for now.